Welcome back to my StateTree tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to look at creating an intro state. This intro state we want to use for playing maybe any opening animations and letting the StateTree set up some of the variables before actually starting the behavior of the enemy. To do this, we'll be creating a state that will only be accessed once, so kind of a do once state. In StateTrees, this is actually a little bit more difficult than it might seem. So let's get started. First, we're going to create a child state, and we're going to take this all the way up top. And we'll place it under that, and we'll call this the intro state. Now, this is going to have one child state again. And in this child state, which we'll call do opening animation, this is very open to whatever you want it to be. For this do opening animation, we want to create our own new StateTree task. So in the top left, let's click new task of the blueprint base. Let's put it in tasks. And we'll call this STT_intro. Let's dock this in here. And now with every new state you create, always first overwrite, enter state, and a finish task. In this state, we want to make it do some intro animation, something to open up the fight. But for now, we're just going to make the character jump. So let's start by creating a variable, calling this character. And we are going to make this of type BP_enemy base. Object reference, and like before as well, we'll give this the category context, just so you never have to set this again in the future. We're going to drag character in and just say jump. Let's start with this for now. Then after jumping, we want to wait for about a second. And then we are done. Now, we're going to need a lot more than this, but let's take it one step at a time. We're going to jump back into our state tree, put the task on the state, so STT_intro. And next we need to create another parameter. This parameter is going to be a boolean with the name didIntro. We're going to create this boolean so that we can have an enter condition on this with a bool compare to see if we've already done the intro. So let's plug in our didIntro parameter and just make sure that we haven't done it yet. So we haven't done the intro yet. didIntro is false. Now with this setup, we need a way to set this parameter inside of this StateTree task. So let's go back into our StateTree task. Let's create a bit of space after jump. We are going to get a get property reference. We're going to plug this in right here. This property ref, we're going to promote to a variable, and we'll call this the intro ref. You'll see that this is a StateTree property reference. Next, we're going to create a bit more space. Now we're going to drag off succeeded and say set by ref. And the reference becomes the target and the value we're going to make right now. Let's create another variable and we'll call this didIntro. And we're going to immediately drag this out. But before we can actually link this up to value, we need to open up our intro reference, compile, and you'll see some errors appear. And you need to set this intro reference to a boolean. This might be empty, but just make sure this is set to a boolean. And now if we plug in this to the value, you see that all these lines become red and we can actually compile. So now what we're doing is for getting this intro reference, we are then setting it to our didIntro boolean, and we're going to make this true. So now we're going to say our intro reference becomes true. We have done our intro. And now we can connect this up. And now when entering this state, we will jump. We will get our intro reference property and we'll link this to didIntro, which is true. So we're going to set it to true. And then we're going to finish the task. If this somehow fails, then we're just going to finish task without success. Now let's make intro reference public so that we can actually see it. And then we can compile and save, go back into our StateTree. And then right here, we have to bind it to didIntro. What we can also do, because this is actually something we are only going to use as an input, is we can go back in our StateTree task, and instead of making this public, we can also say category input. And then if we compile and save, you'll see right here, it gets the in little category. It says this input property is always expected to be bound to some other property. So now if I compile, you get a warning because it isn't linked to anything. And this means it needs an input, and our input is the didIntro. So we're going to say right here, parameters didIntro. And now if you compile, the error goes away. This is one of those categories for variables that you can use to make StateTrees a little bit more foolproof. If you have a big team and you need people to use this way you can make sure that people don't forget these things. Now, before we jump in and try this out, something that's always nice to make sure that you can actually see the StateTree in the debugger is we're going to add a delay here of about, let's do 1.5 seconds, so that gives us ample time. Let's compile, save, compile, save. Now let's jump in. Let's click the thing and see interstate, do animation. And after it's done jumping, it immediately goes into its normal behavior tree. Now every time he misses an attack, he goes back to the root, which means he would go back into intro state. So let's make him attack us. Let's make him miss. Now he goes to the root and he goes into strafing state. So this means he skipped over the intro state. So as you can see for now, we spawn in our root. We skip over dead because we aren't dead yet. We go into the intro state once. We do our intro animation. We set this parameter to true. We then never are capable of entering this state again. And then we just go into select behavior and he does all its normal stuff. If you want to change out this jump for an animation, of course, just take away this jump node, put in your play montage here, and then from there you can keep the rest the same. That was it for this episode.